Hi everyone. So this is Therapy Hour with Kristen Osborn, and today I'm here, Elisabet Rosen, and we will talk about Birgitta Elmquist's and her colleague Leif Hamnerskjöld's book, Psychotherapy, the 6 basic core competencies. And that's really a work you've done together with Leif, and he's not with us anymore, but I really appreciate your work, and it's a great book. And I come to remember that you really, and Leif, really have the patient in the center. And it's all about how to help people. But I'd love to hear something about how this book came about. Could you say something about that, Birgitta?
Yeah, so thank you for having me at this therapist hour. So I think we could begin when we met Elisabet on the conference up in north of Sweden in spring 2018, because that was a very stressful period for me, and I brought some papers that I always read those papers, and then I gave one to you, asking if you could read it and make sense of it, and then the next day you came back and you said, well, yes, I read it, but actually I think you need to rewrite it.
I didn't get anything. So, I was kind of, what is
that?
this?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And that
I
was
remember.
that was such an help for me, because that was the first time I showed Leif's manuscript for anyone. So I just want to show you a picture of who Leif is, since some of you,
great. That's
great. Yeah, some of you know him, but not all of you. So here we are, Leif Hamnerskjöld and myself, outside the Institute of SAPU, where we worked for like 15 years. He was one of the founders. I came a little bit later, but we worked together for 15 years at that institute. But we met long before that. So we had a long, very long history together. And he was a very intellectual person, reading all the time. And one of our tasks at the institute was to try to grasp the center of psychotherapy and how to teach therapists at different levels, and also supervisors. What do a therapist need to know? What kind of skills do we need to develop from the beginning, but also over the whole career?
Yeah. Birgitta, before you go further, it really evokes so much feelings in me when you talk about this, because I mean, you were so close. So I remember this is really a grieving process for you to have done this book, and it's a great work. It's really a great work.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, that's why I couldn't write anything from the beginning, because I mean, he died in August 2017, and I knew he was writing the book, and I knew it was about psychotherapy in a broader sense. He never showed his manuscript while he was working, so we talked about it sometimes, but I didn't know exactly what he was writing. And then suddenly he died. He had a stroke, and that was very. We didn't know about. I mean, his health in that way. So some months after he passed, his family asked me if I would like um, to finish the book. And I said yes, just like a reflex, because
Yeah.
that was the way we worked together. I mean, he helped me, I helped him. So I said yes. But then there I was. I mean, with these papers, scattered notes, and my grief. So I couldn't do anything. But it moved when I talked to you, and after that I started to talk to other colleagues, and I must remember. I must also mention Jenny Svebeck.
Yeah.
I think you're here today, Jenny,
Mm-hmm.
my friend and colleague, because you were so important for me. You discussed the book, every chapter, and that helped me keep on going, and you encouraged me so much. And other colleagues also, Anne Koskiniemi, helped too. So it was really helpful to discuss with close colleagues. So in January 2020, I sent the final version to my publisher. And that was, I mean, one of the hardest things I've ever done. But here it is. So obviously it's not in English. Therapy, the 6 basic competencies. Psykoterapi, de 6 grundläggande kompetenserna. And Leif and we are co-authors, because I mean it was Leif's idea. So even though at the end I might have done most of the book, it was his idea, and it was decent to have both names. And in the book I write we all the time, because we shared so much knowledge, and so I think it's fair to call it we.
That's
I
really
think he
beautiful.
would agree with that.
Yeah, that's really beautiful to read that, and you remind of that all the time, all through the whole book. As we met, Birgitta, you and me the other night, we were discussing these competencies, and I came to really focus together with you on the last competence. We will go through the competences, but the last competence is about intersectionality. And there, I think, I mean, the patient, you really put the patient in the center, how to help the patient. Besides all the theory, besides all the methods, and besides everything else, what's the preference of the patient, the culture, sexual orientation, the race, everything. I mean, the earth, where does this patient come from? And how that is intertwined with the other parts. And that was so interesting. That part was really great to read. And the humanistic part of, I mean, yeah, that was really great. Could you say something about that?
Important. Yeah, I think it's so important. I mean, to put the patient in the center, and the therapeutic relationship in the center. I'll show you the model in a second. And I want to say that our ambition was to highlight the similarities between different psychotherapy models and focus on evidence-based practice. So we wanted to focus on how to help people and set a scene where the therapist and the client is in the center of attention, and that there's a lot of things that therapists need to develop skills within this to how we handle therapeutic relationships.
And that is often forgotten in the APA. I mean, the evidence-based therapy it's often forgotten, the patient's own preference.
important because we talk so much about evidence-based, but APA has other definitions of that. So it's
I
not
put it
only
here in the chat, so you'll have it.
yeah, evidence-based practice.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's important that our technique, our theory is research-based. And of course, since we work within university, everything we taught there needed to be, I mean, enough research on. So our idea is that we shouldn't get stuck in a specific psychotherapy model too soon, because that can result in a too narrow understanding of the therapy process and the therapist.
But I just love that piece because it really highlights the humanistic ambition you have, you and Leif, and just to help people. But as we're here, we really want to listen to all these competencies. So there's 5 more to go. So could you please just present the 5 other issues here?
I will. I'm glad to do that. So here we are. I mean, I was so happy when I found this picture. So, I mean, I don't know, there are people listening from different countries. So this about core competencies might be more well known in the United States than at least in Sweden. That's not what we talk about usually. We talk about therapeutic schools, not so much about the meta theories. So this was a model that I found in Len Sperry's book, and I think you can send out
see if I can do that.
Yeah, the title of the book so that people can see
there's the title of the book. If you want to buy it, you can have a sense of the model.
Yeah, because I think that's a very interesting book and it helped me for sure. So this, if you look at this model, I mean, the therapeutic relationship is in the middle, in the center of all the skills that you need to develop throughout your development as a psychotherapist. But then around, there are the outer circles consists of the conceptual foundation. That's the meta-theoretical idea about how people develop, how different psychiatric problems evolve. So that's a meta level of understanding. And then we have
here, Birgitta, before you go further, I think really what you explained to me the other day is that the meta foundation, it's theories, it's not therapeutic models.
No, it's not.
No, it's a difference between there. So, that was important for me to notice.
Yeah, I mean, this is something overarching understanding of the human conditions. So it's not a specific psychotherapy theory that comes later, much later. So we want to urge people to train their minds to look at these overarching ideas, not to get stuck in the small details. So, and then in the outer circle, we have at the bottom, that's what you mentioned, Elisabet.
Yes.
Let me see. Intersectionality, culture, and ethics. So the skills of this competence is about knowledge, but most of all about awareness and of one's own position and of the position of the other, of the patient.
Mhm.
So therapists need to develop continuous self-reflection and can be helped in personal therapy. In the American literature, intersectionality is mostly about race and power, but we wanted to stress other aspects like belonging to different subgroups, for instance, cultural groups, class, social, sexual orientation, or having different mental or physical disabilities. I mean, so it is a question about power, but you can, I mean, look at power from different angles. And when you think you are equal as a therapist, that does not necessarily mean that the therapist feels this.
Birgitta, I'm thinking of the triangle of person. How important it is, I mean, to see the power in the therapy corner, the power imbalance maybe in life now, and also where you come from. What's the soil you come from history. So I mean, it's really important.
So you can, yes, we can, I mean, I guess the triangles are known for most people here. So it could be used there.
Yeah, definitely.
That's true.
Yeah.
I am so interested to learn more about the book and, you know, how it can help psychotherapists in their training and in their work. You know, if I was to learn Swedish immediately and buy this book, right? Like what is it that I can learn from reading your book? And maybe for those of us who don't read Swedish, this is an opportunity for you to educate us. So that we can like learn from Leif and you together.
Yeah, so I think overall that's a very good question, because I think, I mean, we read all the time, don't we? I mean, we find different books about different aspects. We read about depression, we read about anxiety, we read about therapeutic relationship, read about everything. I mean, different aspects of therapy. What we wanted to focus on are skills that the therapists need to develop all over the therapeutic, the psychotherapy career. I mean, we need to start there, and then we can go to different models, and sort of that's the fine skills. But we need to look at the bigger picture, what we need to build.
So Birgitta, for some of us who aren't aware of what those skills are, could you just list those skills out loud? Just like 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah. So the first one is the cohesive theoretical model. That's on the overarching, the outer circle from the model. The second one is the therapeutic relationship in the center. You know, this is the center of our work. We know that. And it includes different tasks, like how to create, but also how to maintain the relationship during the therapeutic process. So this needs to be introduced in theoretical concepts, but we also need a lot of practice from the beginning and later on in supervision. And when we are psychotherapists, we need to do it over and over. We need to you know, have this continuous learning.
You also separate the classical, I mean, alliance from the therapeutic relationship, that we really have to be a real person.
Yeah, yeah. Therapeutic relationship is a broader concept, I think.
Yeah.
The alliance is, I mean, it's more how we work. It's about being in alliance with tasks.
Yeah.
And to have a relationship. That's, I mean, that's more definition.
Yeah.
But therapeutic relationship is broader term.
For those of us in the EDT community, you know, we have affect phobia therapist, we have ISTDP therapist, we have EFT therapist, there's AEDP therapist. There's a lot of different therapists that are here during the therapist hour today. And you're really affirming the fact that, you know, we all need to find a model that fits us. And then, and then once we have our model that we're working with, then, you know, with the therapeutic relationship, that's more experiential. Like, what do you do in session with your patient while you have this model to guide you?
Absolutely. And I think what's unique with our training within the EDT Society is that we stress deliberate practice in different ways. I mean, we really practice. We practice specific tasks that we need to work with. So some things we need to work with within personal therapy, but other things we can work in supervision, in core trainings, or at home, looking at our own videos. So there are so many different ways.
What are the other core competencies? Because we've heard two. So what are the 4 other ones? Just so that we make sure that we have all of them.
So 3, 4, 5. That's different strategies and interventions. First, it's a question about assessment. We need to develop a lot of skills to do assessment. I mean, that's a very important part of the therapy. If we don't do assessment well, I mean, that will influence the whole process. So we think that, I mean, that's something you need to read theory about, but then you also need to train and deliberate practice.
Well, and it's so good to hear that, because I know Leif and you are very familiar with, you know, Lee McCullough's work, but also Patricia Coughlin's work, where they both were very much focused on assessment, like literally taking the time to gather forms for information and then using the initial evaluation as the assessment phase.
So, I mean, the specific model gives us some instruction how to do assessment, but there are also, I mean, wider concepts about assessment that could be useful for us.
Yeah, that's really true. I mean, goal setting is really something that research focus on. I mean, besides all the different models, how important it is to really have a goal. So that's really true.
And I think one of the things that we are used to within our model within EDT is that we video, I mean, we do video on all our sessions, and that is really so helpful. You know, when I started as a teacher and supervisor at SAPE, like 15 or 20 years ago, I mean, in Sweden, there were not so many institutes who used video. They refused it, actually, referencing to ethical issues and to intrusion in the therapeutic relationship. So, I mean, things have changed rapidly. now.
Well, what's so great with video, is you can actually take your 6 core competencies that you write about in your book,
yes,
and watch the video segments of psychotherapy and see, like, are the therapists able to meet those core competencies? But we need to know what the rest of the core competencies are.
So I'll tell you.
We have the model, we have the therapeutic alliance, we have assessment and
intersectionality.
Then you at the bottom, but we can recall that as a 6th one. Then we have strategies and interventions.
Yes.
You know, the strategies comes, of course, from the chosen model. But in our book, we also describe a lot of different models to work with the same issue. Because, I mean, many strategies could be used within different models, even though not everybody talk about that, because you want to sort of put your label on doing things. I had a supervision group today, and then one of my supervisors said, and that was in affect-focused relational psychotherapy, and so she said, you know, I wanted to do a CBT intervention. I'm not sure, can I do that? Right. So I asked her, what's the intervention? And she described it, and I said, well, I don't mind. I mean, it's in the context of your relationship. It answers some questions, so why not? I mean, try it. So
right. That's so important, Birgitta, because, you know, I know Marv Goldfried at Stony Brook, he's always talking about therapists developing a common language so that we can really, you know, help ourselves improve our trade. And when there's so many different labels for the same intervention, it becomes extremely confusing for students and teachers. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like sometimes it's like we have specific churches or sects. I mean, it's like a sort of closed societies where we build a we, and then, we do like this. So I think that was what she referenced to when she said, do you do like this? I mean, can I do something from CBT? Well, in this case, I didn't mind. I mean, so.
But that's pretty unique with this book, that you just put them beside each other, and we can just turn the page and we have another method on the other page, but the same patient all through the whole book. And that's beautiful.
Follow a patient all through the therapy process, using different techniques, different interventions. So interventions, that was the 4th. Then the 5th, that is very important. That's the intervention we use for termination, during termination, and how we evaluate. I think this is often a very missing piece in educational psychotherapy, and we need a lot of theory. What does termination mean? I mean, things have changed a lot since I did my psychotherapy training, when termination of psychotherapy was I mean, that was death. We never see each other again. I mean, so that was something very harsh. That might be the case now, but it doesn't need to be that case. I mean, we could see a patient again, for instance. So what does termination mean, and how do we handle it? And we often see that therapists need personal therapy to work through own issues of separation. It's hard to work with separation, and we have all have experiences of difficult separations. So that could be really, really helpful. I must say, in Sweden, there's a big debate within psychotherapy training about personal therapy, and some schools, some models reject personal therapy nowadays, or demand just a very few hours. So, I mean, I think that's very serious, but there are different opinions. I don't know if that's the case in other countries. So, and evaluation is very important to learn the skill of evaluation, how to evaluate continuously within the process, asking patients, what do you think about our work today? I mean, what worked, what did not work? You can use forms if you want to, or you can just talk about it. And then you need to do evaluation at the end of the process to see what happened during the therapy.
And I think Birgitta, one thing that all the models share is like core conflict formulation, always collaborating with your patient about, you know, what is the core conflict formulation as you're working through a session. And so there's the evaluation that happens in session between two people. And, you know, that's definitely an integral part of the therapeutic relationship. And then there's the evaluation, you know, after session, you know, what experience did the patient have? Yeah.
So yeah, that's so true. So you can see how the different competencies are related to each other. I mean, how we deal with the psychotherapeutic relationship. I mean, it says something about how we can end the therapy, how we can do and handle the therapeutic process. So everything is connected to each other, sort of.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was the fifth, termination and evaluation. And then the last one is this about intersectionality, culture, and ethics. And I think we have already mentioned that one.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if I sort of show you the picture once more. So this is it. How it sort of builds together, influencing each other all the time. And these are competencies that we think and research show that these are skills and different competencies and skills within the competence that we need to develop.
The audience would really appreciate understanding is all the different therapeutic models and master therapists that Leif and you have worked with over the years that have definitely influenced these core competencies and in your book. And so, you know, who was the first master therapist who came to Stockholm? Was that Paul Wachtel?
It was.
Yeah. And then who came after Paul Wachtel?
Yeah, you know, we have had many, but I mean, we had Lee for several years.
Yep, Paul Wachtel, Lee, Diana Fosha,
Leslie Greenberg.
Oh yeah, Leslie Greenberg.
They represent different ways of working, but they were all excellent in building relationship. And they had clear minds about what they were doing. And they, I think, also had this open mind.
Right.
They were not, I mean, they didn't, I think they were sort of seeking answers. I mean, asking the patients all the time. They knew a lot, but they didn't know the truth, sort of. They were sort of asking and you know, searching for building a
Right.
good relationship and building a good process.
Right.
So,
And one of the questions on the chat was about, what specific tasks need to be pulled together in regard to the therapeutic relationship. But what I'm realizing now as I listen to you talk about the core competencies and I pay attention to all the historical figures that, Leif and you came in contact with over 3 decades, right? Of training psychotherapists.
That's so strange. I mean,
It's
Yeah.
a lot of time.
And openness, like this this presence of openness. And I'm remembering the many dinners that occurred with Leif and yourself and different visitors and students. And openness was really what happened. It's people coming together and being open about what video segments of psychotherapy they watched and how that overlapped with like different psychotherapeutic models and and so this curiosity and so what did you learn from everyone that you came into contact with about what's important about the therapeutic relationship? Openness, curiosity, what else?
Professional stance. I mean, no question about that. But we also need to be a person and to let that show. I mean, I read some days ago, I often go back to the books, and Lee McCullough said the task is to what did he say? To go so close that the patient can feel you, but at the same time to be at a distance where there's air and freedom for the patient to show them and their pictures. So this is the balance we need to go between with different patients. So it's a fascinating work we have, and I think being vitalized during our personal life is so important to discuss with colleagues, to be open-minded, because we know some colleagues who close themselves and feel bored and I mean do therapy out of routine, and I mean.
And so Birgitta, we have another question from the audience, and it's like, how do we go about practicing these specific skills that you've drawn our attention to? Like, what type of deliberate practice can we do as therapists?
I mean, this is a wide question, of course. Because it depends on the therapist. I mean, we need to be aware of that we are different. So we need to have a lot of basic knowledge, but we also need to use our personality and to notice that sometimes our personality isn't as strong in different areas, so we need to build on that. We need to overcome some problems or get more skilled. So I mean, I think it differs. There are of course some basic skills, but then very much I think we need to look to the specific therapist and the time when the therapist ask this question. I mean, the answer is so different if it's in the beginning of a development in the training, or if I talk to a colleague like you yourself. I mean, with so many years of experience, and we know that we still, with all this experience, we need to develop, and we know to keep ourselves, in tune.
Well, and Birgitta, I don't know if you know this, but Elisabet and I did a webinar this weekend that talks about, affect phobia therapy and deliberate practice, and just, some methods that people can take in order to, practice their skill set, but also take care of themselves too. Elisabet, is there any other questions that you wanted to ask of Birgitta, or do you want to open it up to the audience, or do you have any comment that you want to share?
Well, I just appreciate so much that you've written this book together with Leif, because it's, bringing all the methods together, the therapy methods together, and then sort of getting the overarching personality theory, and then respecting both the therapist and the patient as persons, really humanistic. And it's really beautiful. You're taking care of the patient and the therapist.
And the therapist, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm of course very interested to know how, what we've talked about, how that attracts people from different countries, from different parts of the world, because I guess, we are writing out of our experience. And that's from Sweden, even though we have traveled and have a lot of international colleagues. And for instance, we've been so many times in the United States, but it is our experience. And I think it differs from different countries, but that's another webinar. I think we don't have time for that now, but I think that's interesting, the difference between countries.
Very true.
Well, and I want to mention a comment in the chat box, because I think it's important to share. And then if we have a question from the audience, that would be good. Jenny's feedback, talks about the therapeutic relationship being inspired by Charles Gelso's definition of the therapeutic relationship, the real relationship, transference and countertransference, and the alliance. And she says this book talks about, helps us understand these different parts of the therapeutic relationship. And so if everyone wants to just take a look at that, they can learn a little bit more about the therapeutic relationship. And on that note, does anyone have a question in the audience that they'd like to ask?
Yes, I have a question.
All right.
In this model, let's see. So I happen to have a particular interest in the play between therapist and client, and so I'm curious about, in your model, in your book, you talked about the therapist showing his or her personality, and I think we show our personalities as we play, as we bring humor, as we bring lightness. One concern that I worry about in therapy is that we tend to be too serious. Someone there is in a book somewhere suggested that the therapist need to provide at least two things to the client. One being to help the client tolerate her own inner world and her own anxiety and her own history. Number two, we need to help the client tolerate us.
Yeah.
And one way we can help the client tolerate us is to bring play and lightness, and being what you talked about, being a real person, that it is a two-person psychology. So my question is really about bringing play and lightness into the therapy.
I think that's very important. And I also think that, self-reflection for the therapist is very important, because the more we use ourselves, the more we let ourselves, play, doing spontaneous things, the more we need to reflect. what's happening. I mean, what am I doing, and why am I doing it? And that often happens afterwards. And if we did something that wasn't helpful, I mean, then we have a chance to repair. So that ain't so bad either. But I mean, we need to reflect. But humor and play is very, very important. I agree.
Well, and Birgitta, I just want to take a moment because we know Leif was a huge fan of Jock Pangsup's work.
Yeah.
And when Jock Pangsup came to the IADTA conference in 2010, he really introduced to the audience the power of play and how important it is, that it's, hopefully a capacity that one's born with. Mm-hmm. And it has a tremendous healing quality to it. Thank goodness for research. We can always code videotapes and see, whether or not a play intervention was helpful or not. But I want to take a moment to just say something about you that I've always treasured, and it's your love for music. And how, I have seen you use music as a therapist, as a supervisor, and also as a trainer of a psychotherapist. And that's something that I think is very special to you and really sets you apart in your work.
Yeah, I think that's a channel between person to person.
Right. Right. So we now have some music, and I don't know if Lisa Barker knows how dear music is to you, Birgitta. For the audience, my first opera was with Birgitta in Stockholm, and I was moved to tears. I had no idea how powerful, even though I couldn't understand the language, how powerful the music was. And so, Lisa, thank you so much for being here for every therapist hour and sharing music with us.
Thank you so much, Kristen, again for organizing this, and Birgitta and Elisabet for sharing your book, Birgitta. I have a question, which is there ever going to be an English translation available?
Well, that would be nice.
Another project.
Another project.
So yeah, that's fun that you just ended by sharing your love for music and about play. So this song, we've sung a lot of really kind of mellow, peaceful songs. I thought today we would end on something really energizing, uplifting, and vitalizing. So this song is called Lead with Love. You gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. You gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. And you can add the beat. We can also do body percussion if it's available to you and you want to stand up and move. So if you're like me, you spend most of the day sitting. We can also do rhythm like this: slap, stomp. I don't know if you can see. So slap your knee and then stomp. You gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. You gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. And the second part is call and response, and it goes like this. Lift up your eyes, and you repeat, lift up your eyes, don't you despair, don't you despair. Look up ahead, look up ahead. The path is there, the path is there. You gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love, put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. I know you're scared. I know you're scared. I'm scared too. And I'm scared too. Look up ahead. Look up ahead. I'm next to you. I'm next to you. You gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Don't give up hope. Don't give up hope. You're not alone. You're not alone. Don't you give up. Don't you give up. Keep moving on. Keep moving on. You gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Last time you gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Put one foot in front of the other and lead with love.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for coming here for the Therapist Hour. We'll see you in December.